and I'm retired from the federal government. I was an analyst, a computer and business analyst, when I was 20, many moons ago. I had moved out to California, and I was, I guess I was looking for the promised land, and I was temporarily staying in LA, and I was on a date with a young man, and I was on the back of a motorcycle for the first time in my life, first and last. And he said, well, we don't need to use a helmet if we're on the back roads, which we were. And so coming back from where we were going, a drunk driver was coming straight at the motorcycle. And I remember thinking, no, this can't be happening. It can't end like this. And just a moment before, I had taken off my glasses, which I was declared legally blind without my glasses when I was 17, a couple of years prior. And so I was thrown onto the highway, and I had a fractured skull and numerous broken bones in my head. And my skin on my face was ripped off. So they took me to the hospital, and I spent 2 weeks in kind of in a strange state. I guess I was in a medically induced coma, because I was like drifting through dimensions, just drifting. And then they sent me home, and they said, oh, well, we can't give you anything for the pain. Anything we'd give you would be addictive, which is true. But I was too young and inexperienced to know to argue with doctors, because this was a time for pain meds. And I went up to my room, and I threw myself down on the bed. I was in such an extreme state of despair because of having to go through this suffering. I had the philosophy that life is for having fun, and I didn't understand how people went through medical things, and since my face was going to be messed up, so I thought, I also thought, well, no man will ever love me. And then the pain, the pain was just horrible. So I had been an atheist / agnostic. I was raised in a conservative Jewish family, which is most of the people that in my family and in my world were skeptical about there being God, there being anything after this life. So, you know, I was hoping, so I said, well, God, if you are there, you can have me now, because this is it. I'm finished. And so with that, I said that prayer from the bottom of my soul, and I really meant it. And with that prayer, I lifted up out of my body. And the amazing thing, I realized I wasn't in the body, but I was still me. I was still, you know, aware and having thoughts. And also I was free of that horrible pain. I was in this perfect body, like an ethereal copy of my own. And I was just, it was just amazing, because my vision was perfect. Everything about my, you know, there was no head injury. I had scraped my hand. There was nothing. Everything was perfect. And then there, on the ceiling of the room, was someone waiting for me. And I didn't know about this. There was someone I felt who was a very high being, perhaps the Messiah, maybe an angel, an archangel. And I knew him. He was dressed in white flowing robes, and a light shined out from him from within. And then I knew him. He took my hand, such as it was, and I went to him, and I went flying to the ceiling. And despite these initial doubts, I was thinking like, well, there really aren't angels, and thinking you're at the wrong place. You know, I'm Jewish. You don't have to come for me. So, and then we went flying through the window, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And but we had a destination. There was an inverted funnel, angled upwards and to the right, and at the far end of the funnel, there was a wide opening, and then at the far end, there was this tiny, tiny pinpoint of light. And we went through this area, which was like a portal between this dimension and the spiritual dimension. And it was like some great speed, but I kind of, once we went into the funnel, I lost all sense of time. There was no time or space. That's why it's kind of hard to put these things into words, because it just was. And I knew where I was going. I was going home, to the place that we forget but we long to go our whole lives. And at some point, the angel was gone, but there before me was the living presence of the being of light. And this is where it's really hard to find words, because this being was all things that ever were, are, and will be. And so it wasn't a gender, it didn't have a gender, it was all. And it was perfect knowledge and understanding and justice. And it was bathing me in this unconditional love. And I couldn't receive it just then. And I said, well, I guess this isn't the guy on top of the Sistine Chapel, but I guess this is God. This is who I said the prayer to. And I had a few questions I had to straighten out first, because I was really angry at God. And what happens is your thoughts go out telepathically. Everything you think becomes known. And I asked all of my big questions. And they had to be like, why is there suffering? Why is there war? So I received the answers, and they came back in perfect clarity. All of the ramifications, and I understood completely. And then, as I got the answers, I got download after download. I had no more questions, because suddenly I understood the whole plan. I understood how everything worked, and I was okay. I was okay with being with God.